Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 episode number 138 based on novel. So let's start. As a disciple of the body sect, how could he possibly reach such the unity of heaven and man realm through medicine? His cultivation was achieved through his own hard work and effort. Such a soul sage from the body sect, was very scary. His 4 10,000-year soul rings were even superior to the unbreakable Doluor beside him. Zheng Zhon only had 4 10,000-year soul rings. The body sect actually had such a strong individual among their ranks. The expression of everyone from Tang sect changed. Even Shu Tianran, Jing Hongchen and the mysterious imperial tutor were all affected when they saw Long Outian's 7 soul rings. Their auras started to undulate. Before Long Outian had surfaced, Wang Chua was recognized as the strongest in this tournament. Her fighting strength was the best. However, those who were sharp could tell that Long Outian was superior to Wang Chua even before he made a move. They just didn't know what his martial soul was. 100 meters was nothing to Long Outian. He took only a second to move this distance. He didn't perform any superfluous actions or unleash any of his soul skills. He raised his right hand and mimicked a pressing action towards Hua Yuhao. Suddenly, the entire stage started to gently shake. Hua Yuhao sensed that his opponent wasn't just Long Outian, but the air within the protective barriers around the stage. Even the sunlight became a part of his opponent's attack. Even though nothing weird had happened yet, Hua Yuhao felt a huge change occurring. Was this a fighting technique in the realm of unity of heaven and man? Hua Yuhao's eyes brightened. Even Long Outian was a little stunned. He wondered why Hua Yuhao wasn't fearful or panicky, but excited. Hua Yuhao raised his right hand and formed a fist, then shuddered slightly. Following this, a golden projection separated from his body. He also turned golden, just like a golden sculpture. This golden projection was slender. Although it was illusory, her appearance made Long Outian feel that the pressure he was putting on Hua Yuhao was being borne by this projection. She looked a little familiar. 3 pairs of wings opened behind her, and her long hair flowed. She punched with her right hand and blocked Long Outian's palm. There was no tremendous collision. When both parties contacted each other, Long Outian's attack seemed to have been retracted. The fist of the golden projection also developed an indescribable, whirlpool-like glow that seemed able to engulf everything. 2 beams of light, golden and white jade, blew apart after a momentary silence. They changed into 2 light barriers that stuck close to each other as they rippled. Hua Yuhao seemed to really become a statue as he sat in his wheelchair. There wasn't a single change in him. The golden projection in front of him was also crushed as the beams of light blew apart. Long Outian didn't move a single inch. However, there was a look of shock in his eyes. It was definitely not a soul skill. It was a fighting technique. What fighting technique was it? It wasn't the sovereign's descent that Hua Yuhao had inherited from the dragon god Doluor. Even with Long Outian's cultivation, he couldn't continue to advance as they clashed. In the next instant, the golden projection reformed. She retracted her left hand and extended her right hand. As she tugged and pulled, a pure golden whirlpool with a diameter of around 1 foot flew out from the hands of the golden projection, barreling towards Long Outian. Long Outian took a step back and raised his right arm. His palm straightened like a blade. Suddenly, his entire arm and body turned a jade color. Behind him, a twisted blade formed by compressed air lit up and slashed. There was a deafening screech in the air. The golden whirlpool was destroyed, but the jade blade light was also crushed. This time, Long Outian retreated half a step again, whereas Hua Yuhao was bleeding from his nose and mouth. While it seemed like a simple collision, it was actually more dangerous and scary than using soul skills. After the golden projection was crushed again, Hua Yuhao's face was already completely pale. He retracted his right arm to his chest before pushing it out again. The golden projection took form again. This time, the projection clasped her palms before her chest. An austere aura was released. Long Outian's expression turned serious. After entering the realm of unity of heaven and man, his senses were probably superior to Hua Yuhao's even if his spiritual power wasn't comparable. His sense of crisis was especially acute. When that golden projection took form in front of Hua Yuhao again, Long Outian only felt his heart shrinking. After that, his heart beat extremely quickly, and he started perspiring profusely. Even with his cultivation, he still broke out in a cold sweat. It was as if he were being targeted by a venomous snake that could kill him with one bite. How's it possible? His cultivation is definitely below mine. He has also been greatly exhausted. Why is he giving me such a feeling? Although Long Outian was shocked, he didn't slow down. He pointed his toes to the ground and he flipped backward. At the same time, his arms drew a huge circle in front of his body. His entire body turned jade white, and his complexion glowed. Behind him, a silver-white human figure quickly took form. It was the second awakening of his body soul. It was a silver-ranked awakening. In fact, Elder Mu wasn't even sure whether the second awakening of body souls in the body sect could evolve. The highest level of second awakening right now was the white-silver level. Only a person with his second awakening in the white-silver level could transcend the level of a titled Doluor and evolve to the gold level. Huo Yuhao's judgment was very accurate. Long Aotian was the strongest among the younger generation in the body sect. He was likely to inherit the position of the leader of the body sect in the future. His status in the body sect was very high. It was even superior to many elders. After seeing Long Aotian's second awakening of his body soul, everyone from the Snowdemon sect in the waiting area couldn't help but stand up. They didn't understand why he would do this even though he was at an advantage. At this point, the projection in front of Huo Yuhao's body moved. She swept her clasped palms forward, and a thin, golden light shot out. Wherever the light passed, no ripples were created. Not even a sound could be heard. Without looking carefully, it was almost impossible to detect it. At least no spectator was able to see this golden light. It even seemed to absorb the light that it refracted. Long Aotian had a grave look on his face. When the golden light flashed, even his soul felt a piercing pain. This was an attack that he couldn't possibly dodge. He refused to use an invincible barrier to protect himself. As the strongest individual in the younger generation of the body sect, he was a firm believer that martial souls were still stronger than soul tools. The protective white light around Long Aotian's body was like a rubber ball that had been pricked. It instantly blew apart and turned into a white glow that quickly dispersed. He groaned and shuddered. The white lights around his body started to surge. Huo Yuhao wasn't in the best condition on the other side either. After unleashing this attack, the projection in front of him instantly dimmed and disappeared. He was very pale, and was relying on his wheelchair to keep himself from collapsing. He was panting, and the light in his spirit eyes had also dimmed slightly. However, he was still staring at his opponent. He sighed in his heart. It was his first time using this ultimate technique. However, the result Long Aotian's body started to jerk tremendously, and he spat out blood. The blood that he spat out was a little weird. After spitting it out, it immediately changed into countless blood arrows that scattered and let out a series of sizzles. As it landed on the ground, it formed small holes, but the depth of these holes couldn't be determined. His body jerked slightly, and he also looked slightly pale. When he looked at Huo Yuhao again, his expression was very serious. He lifted his right hand, and a milky white glow appeared. Brother Long is hurt. Everyone from the Snowdemon sect was astonished. It seemed like he was in rather bad shape. They also didn't expect Huo Yuhao to weaken Long Aotian at the last moment. I concede defeat. Huo Yuhao's weak voice sounded. He signaled towards Zheng Zhon. After winning 2 consecutive fights, Huo Yuhao finally lost to the most outstanding youth from the body sect. Although Long Aotian didn't use his full abilities in this fight, he was still hurt by Huo Yuhao's last attack. Wang Donga rushed up the stage immediately. She came to Huo Yuhao's side, and he smiled at her to show that he was fine. When Wang Donga was about to push him off the stage, Long Aotian suddenly said, "Wait a minute." Huo Yuhao twisted his head to look at him. Wang Donga's eyes were filled with caution and hostility. Long Aotian's abilities were beyond what they had expected. Long Aotian looked at Huo Yuhao with a deep gaze. "Can I ask if the golden projection was a fighting technique that you invented?" Huo Yuhao slowly nodded. Long Aotian said, "You are strong. Among those of the same generation, you are the most creative opponent I've met. It's a pity that your body is restricting your abilities. Otherwise, you'd probably be the strongest opponent I've ever met. If there's a day you can stand up, I hope to fight you in your best state." Huo Yuhao smiled. "You'll have that opportunity." When he said that, his eyes seemed to be dazzling. He had given his all in this fight and curbed his opponent several times. However, he still fell short in the end. But there was still the team round. More importantly, he hadn't revealed all his trump cards. Otherwise, what were they going to do against the Holy Ghost sect? Huo Yuhao knew that Long Aotian was much stronger than him, but that he still had a fighting chance. After fighting Long Aotian, he had gained a deeper understanding of his abilities. If he could regain his mobility and absorb all the origin energy of ultimate ice in his body, his cultivation would reach the level of a soul emperor. When that happened, he was confident of challenging Long Aotian through his various fighting methods. Wang Donga pushed Huo Yuhao off the stage and immediately stood behind him to massage his shoulders. Huo Yuhao also had a milk bottle in his hand and started to recover his soul power. Even though he had lost this fight, the Tang sect still held the advantage. Among the 3 who had competed from the Snowdemon sect, Chen Lu was definitely unable to compete in the team round. This meant that they were already a man down for the team round. Shu Sanxia stood up. It was the first time he was so serious in this tournament. The strength of his opponent also motivated his own fighting will. "Second competing member from the Tang sect, please come up to the stage." Zheng Zhon seemed to be a little lost after witnessing such an exciting fight. However, He still continued to manage the proceedings of this individual elimination round. Shu Sancha was about to walk up to the stage, but he heard a voice calling, "Wait a minute." He was a little puzzled as he stopped. He turned to Jiang Nannan beside him. Jiang Nannan stood up and looked at him with a passionate gaze. She said softly, "Return safely." As she spoke, she hugged Shu Sanchi's neck in front of everyone before pecking him on the cheek. Shu Sancha was stunned. Xiao Xiao was the shyest among the 3 ladies of the Shrek's 7 monsters. However, Jiang Nannan was the most conservative. He was lucky when she was willing to hold his hand. Even if he pestered her for a month, he might not even be able to kiss her. However, Jiang Nannan now took the initiative to kiss him in front of everyone. Furthermore, she wasn't encouraging him to win. She had asked him to return safely. It was just a simple few words. However, Shu Sanchi's blood surged. He hugged Jiang Nannan tightly and let out a loud whistle. He stomped his right foot on the ground and jumped up onto the stage. He was too excited. He was even blushing slightly. His entire aura also seemed a little unstable. However, this instability made him seem like a volcano that was about to erupt. He was under great pressure. He took big steps forward and came to the center of the stage. He nodded at the referee. In the Tang sect's waiting area, Bei Bei gave Jiang Nannan a thumbs up. Everyone from the Tang sect knew that Jiang Nannan was the greatest motivation for Shu Sancha. Jiang Nannan was his greatest weakness, but she was also a catalyst to him. Xiao Xiao laughed. She copied Jiang Nannan's gentle voice and said, "Return safely." Jiang Nannan blushed. "I hope that everyone can return safely." Bei Bei teased, "Then you should give me a kiss when I compete later and tell me to return safely." "All right." Jiang Nannan snapped, "Bei Bei, keep dreaming. Xiao Ya is watching." Bei Bei's expression turned stiff. He laughed bitterly and shook his head. Jiang Nannan appeared very apologetic after she said that, and hurriedly said, "Sorry, I." Bei Bei smiled and said, "No worries, I'll make sure Xiao Ya returns safely as well." As he said this, there was a strong sense of belief that came from him. However, everyone could feel how desperate he was. Bei Bei turned to Hua Yuhao and softly asked, "Yuhao, what is his martial soul?" Hua Yuhao replied, "His martial soul should be his skin. It's very rare among body souls. I communicated this to second senior earlier." Bei Bei furrowed his brow. "Does that mean that he has no flaws?" Hua Yuhao answered, "He is really strong. He must have invented his own fighting skill, and even has a very deep comprehension of it. His cultivation has even reached the realm of the unity of heaven and man. To him, soul skills won't make a big difference. His body is his strongest soul skill. He's very scary." After he finished saying this, he shut his eyes and continued to replenish his soul power. In his mind, scenes of his fight with Long Outyen also replayed continuously, especially the last clash between them. "Ancestor Tang San, I'm sorry. I wasn't able to carry on the Tang sect's reputation of having the best, top-ranked hidden weapons on the continent. However, I only used half of the power of that ultimate technique. He would have died if it were paired with lethal poison. If Yama tells someone to die, no one will dare to delay. This ultimate technique was ranked 3rd among the 3 great hidden weapon techniques of the Tang sect that Tang San left in the poison scripture, Yama's Invitation. Yama's Invitation, a hidden weapon that could chase one's soul and seize it forcibly. Hua Yuhao had used his self-invented Goddess of Light's fighting technique to imitate Yama's Invitation. This had depleted all his remaining soul power. Otherwise, he wouldn't have conceded defeat. Long Outyen was too strong. There was no way he could have weakened him without using such a method. Long Outyen was a 7-ringed soul sage who could exhibit a martial soul true body. If everyone from the Tang sect only competed based on their order, they might have to pay a huge price even if they could defeat him. If that happened, what would they do in the team round later on? This was why Hua Yuhao had sacrificed all his soul power to use the Yama's Invitation. Although Long Outyen managed to resist his attack, he was still eventually hurt. Furthermore, Hua Yuhao could also confirm that he was hurt quite badly. Yama's Invitation had 2 deadly ways to kill its target. The first was lethal poison. Hua Yuhao hadn't had time to research the poison chapter that Tang San left behind in depth. As a result, he couldn't recreate the true Yama's Invitation. That was why he couldn't truly utilize this deadly technique. This was why he said he'd only exhibited a part of Yama's Invitation. The second one was the actual Yama's Invitation. There was a special technique to unleash it. It fused the controlling crane, capturing dragon, purple demon eyes, mysterious heaven technique, mysterious jade hands and many other abilities. It also greatly depleted one's soul power. Furthermore, it didn't matter what rank a soul master was in, the depletion would be equally great. It was just that the strength of Yama's Invitation would increase depending on one's cultivation. The actual Yama's Invitation couldn't be avoided. Once it entered the opponent's body, it would immediately be crushed before it coursed through it at a frightening speed. Even without any lethal poison, it was still very terrifying. Otherwise, it wouldn't be among the Tang sect's hidden weapon 100 separation, and even be the third-ranked throwing-type hidden weapon. Hua Yuhao had unleashed the second effect of Yama's invitation earlier. Long Aotian had used the strength of his body soul, which had undergone its second awakening, to reduce the majority of the impact force from Hua Yuhao's partial Yama's invitation. He had also dispelled the part of Yama's invitation that was formed using Hua Yuhao's spiritual and soul power. However, the crushed Yama's invitation still gave him great trouble after it entered his body. When he spat out that mouthful of blood, he had used his soul power and control over his body to force the Yama's invitation out of his body. However, Yama's invitation was very strong. Even though he had forced it out of his body, his passageways were still bound to be hurt. They weren't lightly hurt either. Right now, the next fight on the stage had already begun. As the referee signaled the start of the fight, Shu Sanxia immediately unleashed his shield of the Xuanwu turtle and charged towards his opponent. Right now, he was very energetic, and his aura was pressing. His eyes appeared very sharp. There was only one thought in his mind. If I perform well, will Nannan give me further rewards? In the waiting area, Jiang Nannan was a little worried as she saw Shu Sanxia charging towards his opponent. She asked, Bei, will he be fine? Bei smiled and answered her, why? Don't you trust his abilities? While his opponent is strong, he is adept at defending. This is the best kind of fight for him. If it were me, I wouldn't do any better than him. Especially after your encouragement earlier, I believe he'll be able to unleash his full abilities. Don't worry. When this guy is serious, he can be better than anyone. Okay. Jiang Nannan nodded gently. She focused on the two on the stage, who were getting closer and closer to each other. Long Aotian acted as if nothing had happened in his previous fight against Hua Yuhao. He continued to slide forward as usual. The feeling of the unity of heaven and man appeared once again. Shu Sanxia felt the pressure that Hua Yuhao had felt earlier. His opponent's omnipresent and integrative aura was very uncomfortable. However, Shu Sanxia wouldn't fight his opponent using fighting techniques. They weren't what he was good at. He placed his shield in front of him to protect himself. They were about to clash. Made the first move. Instead, it was Shu Sanxia. When Long Aotian was 10 meters away from him, he stomped on the ground with his right leg and stopped himself in his tracks. His third soul ring shone, and his shield surged with black light. His aura instantly became very cold and eerie. As he pushed his shield forward, his first soul ring shone slightly after his third soul ring. Layers of black light started to surge outward. These lights were like bubbles that rushed towards Long Aotian like overlapping waves. Shu Sanxi's third soul skill, Mysterious Underworld Force, and his first soul skill, Mysterious Underworld Quake. When he used the Mysterious Underworld Quake this time, it didn't provide him all-around control and defense. Instead, it was focused in one direction. As he unleashed it with all his strength, the layers of black light resisted the pressure that Long Aotian brought to him. This was Shu Sanxi's true ability. He was one of the Gemini from Shrek Academy in the past. Even Shrek 7 monsters had never seen him go all out before. Long Aotian snorted and swept his right hand upward. A white blade formed out of thin air. Suddenly, the black bubbles were crushed as they encountered the blade. Shu Sanxi's quaking force was unable to reach Long Aotian. However, Long Aotian was stalled as he was attacked. After the white blade of air got close to Shu Sanxi's shield, it was eventually dissipated by the Mysterious Underworld Quake. Long Aotian lifted his right arm and mimicked a pressing action towards Shu Sanxia with his palm. Suddenly, a white, palm-shaped glow spread. This palm-shaped glow completely stopped the Mysterious Underworld Quake that had reformed after it was destroyed. In addition, it also forced its way closer to Shu Sanxia. Black and white were clearly separated. Long Aotian's attack seemed unstoppable, and quickly arrived in front of the Shu Sanxi's shield. Boom! The white palm-shaped glow scattered. Amidst the tremendous boom, Shu Sanxia retreated. He staggered backward, and his footsteps seemed a little messy. Long Aotian was unforgiving. He stepped forward with his left leg and formed a fist before striking again. This time, it was a fist-shaped glow which seemed even stronger. The glow, which was more than a meter in diameter, quickly reached the staggering Shu Sanxia. Shu Sanxi's shield tilted slightly to one side. Under the effect of the mysterious underworld force, the surface of the shield shone with layers of pitch-black light. Boom! Another loud boom sounded. Shu Sanxia retreated 7 to 8 steps this time. He even lifted his shield as it was jerked to one side. Long Aotian attacked with his right fist. Shu Sanxia did something unexpected this time. He squatted down and tilted his shield upward. Bang! When the fist-shaped glow scattered, a huge patch of white light could be seen above Shu Sanxia. However, he rolled over from this fist. His shield seemed to grow on his body. Even when he rolled, the shield still protected him. He rolled for several dozen meters before he managed to get up, and when he stood up, he still retreated a few steps. After 3 consecutive strikes, Shu Sanxia appeared very disheveled. However, Long Aotian squinted his eyes and smiled. He said, "Good." Shu Sanxia held his shield in front of him and groaned, "I don't need you to tell me that I'm good. Come on." As he said, he hooked his left hand to bait Long Aotian to attack him. Long Aotian didn't make a sound. He pointed his left foot toward the ground. This time, he reached maximum speed. His body flashed before he was immediately in front of Shu Sanxia. As he unleashed his palms, intense white light seemed to turn his entire body into a burning white color. Boom! The shield of the Xuanwu turtle was crushed. Shu Sanxia groaned as he was pushed back. However, it was only the first layer of the shield that was crushed. After the first layer was crushed, Long Aotian's strength destroyed the second layer, followed by the third layer. In front of Shu Sanxia, his shield seemed to turn into countless layers. Furthermore, he was also retreating continuously. Right now, those who were sharp could tell some clues. While Shu Sanxia was retreating, he wasn't completely at a disadvantage. Every step that he took was timed at the perfect instant when the impact force from his opponent was the strongest. His defensive control against an opponent's attack had reached a flawless level. When he retreated, his shield also changed continuously. Every layer that was crushed weakened the attack of his opponent. Long Aotian knew it best. Even with his control, he couldn't stop Shu Sanxia from weakening his attack. It seemed like his opponent was an old turtle who would never perish even in the face of the most brutal thunderstorms. He would only hide within his own shell. Boom! Shu Sanxia kept on retreating. Long Aotian's attack was unceasing, while he was struggling to stay alive. His second and third soul rings shone at the same time. He used the mysterious underworld shield as a series of defensive layers. It worked very similarly to the mysterious underworld quake, especially because he had to control every layer properly to resist Long Aotian's attack. The eternal defense, Shu Sanxia. He was living up to his name now. Boom! A loud explosion resonated, and Shu Sanxia was flung back along with his shield. He retreated more than 20 meters this time before he crashed to the ground. He staggered a few steps again before he neutralized the impact force that had struck him. On the other side, Long Aotian also stopped, and the look in his eyes became sharper. What a troublesome fellow to deal with. Long Aotian cursed in his heart. Hua Yuhao's judgment was right. The strength of Yama's invitation was beyond what Long Aotian had expected. Although he had forced the Yama's invitation out from his body, his passageways were still damaged. He was also greatly depleted because he had gathered too much of his soul power earlier. While the realm of the unity of heaven and man was very strong, its depletion of Long Aotian's soul power was also very great. After the series of attacks, his passageways were hurting. To prevent his injury from worsening, he took it down a notch. Shu Sanxia seems to have been flung away, but Long Aotian knew that he was exploiting the momentum of his attack to spring back. However, Long Aotian didn't stop him either. He also needed this time to catch his breath. Is everyone from the Tang sect so difficult to deal with? Long Aotian breathed in deeply and tried to repress his internal pain. He retracted the burning white glow around his body. Finally, one of his 7 soul rings lit up. He's not using his abilities in the realm of the unity of heaven and man anymore. Beneath the stage, Hua Yuhao brightened as he monitored the fight. Long Aotian's transformations verified his guesses. Even though Long Aotian wasn't any weaker as he unleashed his soul skills, his injuries should be quite bad, since he was no longer in the realm of the unity of heaven and man. He was tapping into his soul skills to increase his fighting strength. Of course, Hua Yuhao also knew that Long Aotian was scariest when he fused his realm of the unity of heaven and man and his soul skills with the second awakening of his body soul. Second senior, hang in there. His first soul ring shone, and Long Aotian's body made some weird changes. He started to bulge, and was now much bigger than before. Following this, his third soul ring also shone. There was now another layer of dark golden glow on his skin. Unleashing these 2 soul skills caused his aura to become stronger and stronger. Everyone could tell that his first soul skill was used to enhance his strength, speed, and other traits. His third soul skill was used to increase his body's tenacity, as if he were making his body metallic. Of course, it was more advanced than that. Right now, Long Aotian seemed as if he had an extra layer of dark golden armor on his body. As he unleashed these 2 soul skills at the same time, he was already charging towards Shu Sanxia. Shu Sanxia didn't retreat this time. His 5th soul ring lit up. Suddenly, a pair of crimson-red eyes opened on his shield. Turtle God's strike. Boom! 2 figures clashed in the air. Shu Sanxia seemed to have become stronger. As they clashed, his entire body was dyed completely black. However, Shu Sanxia couldn't compare to Long Aotian in terms of absolute cultivation. He was still the one who was sent flying back. Enjoyable. Shu Sanxia shouted, though there was already a streak of blood on the side of his lips. However, the look in his eyes became even more incisive. Long Aotian, who was slightly delayed by the collision, charged forward again. He came in front of Shu Sancha and smashed his left fist down. At the same time, he raised his right hand up high. A weird scene occurred. As his second soul ring shone, his right arm was distorted and turned into a long, golden blade. As his left fist collided with the shield of the Xuanwu turtle, Shu Sancha immediately staggered back. However, the shield was still protecting his body. However, the dark golden blade slashed like a bolt of lightning at the next moment. Long Aotian's actions were extremely swift. He didn't give Shu Sancha a chance to avoid him. As Shu Sancha tilted his shield, he tried his best to block the direct attack of the dark golden blade. However, the blade was too sharp. With a clang, the blade stabbed straight into Shu Sancha's shield. Shu Sancha groaned. When a martial soul was hurt, it was no different from hurting the Soul Master. At times, the Soul Master might even be more critically injured. After the dark golden blade stabbed into the shield, it expanded in size and seemed to completely mount itself to the shield. Long Aotian pulled the shield, attempting to drag Shu Sancha towards him. At this point, his left arm had already changed its form. It turned into a dark golden hammer and smacked down ferociously. Shu Sancha had no other choice now. He squatted down and used his shield to protect his body. Boom! These two consecutive blows were too strong. As the hammer pounded the shield, Long Aotian's blade and the shield finally separated. There were many marks on the shield now, and it seemed on the verge of being torn apart. Shu Sancha also spat out blood as he retreated. Long Aotian stretched his arms to his sides, and his fourth soul ring lit up. Once he started his all-out attack, he wasn't going to give Shu Sancha a chance anymore. He only decided to use such a ferocious method to defeat Shu Sancha because he was very difficult to deal with. Not only would this save time, but it would also help to conserve his soul power. Something weird happened. Long Aotian grew in size again. But this time, it seemed as if he were noodle that was being stretched out. He reached more than 4 meters in height. As he extended his arms upward, he was like a piece of dark golden metal that had been stretched after it melted. Long Aotian continued to grow, and was soon more than 5 meters tall. Both his arms then clasped together, and changed into a huge axe. It was actually possible to use a body soul in this manner, changing one's body into different forms. Long Aotian's fighting style was very special. At least, no one was like him in this tournament. Long Aotian pulled his axe back and burst towards Shu Sancha. This strike was bound to be astonishing. The burning white that had covered his body earlier surfaced once again. This was his fourth soul skill in the realm of the unity of heaven and man, the Berserk Godslash. Long Aotian wanted to use this strike to end Shu Sancha and this fight. Shu Sancha was stunned. He didn't even try to dodge. He only stood there, rooted in place. The axe was about to chop down. Suddenly, Shu Sancha smiled. A very arrogant and confident smile. As the axe slashed down, Shu Sancha and his shield were split in two. However, they then turned into a patch of black fluid. When the fluid spread, the stage suddenly darkened, and the ground turned completely black. A huge amount of black water surged, and waves were formed almost instantly. The entire stage had suddenly turned into a black ocean. Long Aotian had exploited his momentum in the air to unleash his attack. Moreover, he was a 7-ringed soul sage, and could fly using his soul power. But no matter how strong an axe was, how useful was it in water? An astonished look appeared on Long Aotian's face again. He had been locked onto Shu Sancha a second ago. However, everything seemed to change when he struck his opponent. Is this a domain-type soul skill? Long Aotian took in a deep breath. Just like how the Tang sect hadn't expected the body sect to have someone as strong as him, he hadn't expected to meet someone from the Tang sect who was so difficult to deal with. As the black waves surged, a figure formed from the black water, rising amidst the waves. Shu Sanchi's voice sounded from all directions. While your attack is strong, you can't overcome water. Water is the strongest defense. If you want to overcome my defense, show me what you've got. A huge shield appeared in the sky. The body of the shield was pitch black, but it exuded an eerie, black wave of gas above it as well. This shield was more than 3 meters in diameter, and the shell and horn of the turtle on this shield were very obvious. At the centermost area of the shield, there was a black snake on top of the turtle. If not for its ruby-red eyes, its figure would have been concealed by the blackness of the shield. At this moment, the shield of the Xuanwu turtle no longer existed. There was only the Xuanwu shield. The black water was Shu Sanchi's domain. It was also his 6th soul skill, Xuanwu's domain. Even among Shrek's 7 monsters, Bei Bei was the only one who knew about his 6th soul skill. After years of tireless cultivation, he also understood that Shu Sancha hadn't waited for his 7th soul skill, but completed his control of the Xuanwu through his 6th soul skill. It was his greatest trump card. In Xuanwu's domain, he was able to fully use his Xuanwu shield. At the same time, the strength of the Xuanwu shield would be greatly increased in Xuanwu's domain. In this domain, all of Shu Sanchi's abilities would increase by 100%. Of course, Xuanwu's domain required a lot of soul power to maintain. As it enhanced him, the domain would also suppress the opponent. This suppression was on two levels, both spiritual and physical. The Xuanwu was a divine aquatic beast. As a result, an enemy would face the suppression of water in Xuanwu's domain. Long Aotian could already feel it. The air disappeared, and everything around him turned very thick. He couldn't breathe, and the water pressure was rising. With Shu Sanxi's current cultivation, his enemies would have to handle water pressure and resistance equivalent to a depth of 20 meters. This was the home ground of the eternal defense, Shu Sanxia. Long Aotian nodded gently as he looked at Shu Sanxia, and even gave him a thumbs up. Those who were strong often developed admiration for one another. However, Long Aotian's eyes shone very brightly at this moment. A silver projection rose behind his back. The last time it had appeared, it had done so to resist Yama's invitation. Long Aotian's body jerked, and he forced the water pressure around him away. His fifth black soul ring shone at this point. His body lit up in a burning white flame, like he had set himself on fire. His fourth soul skill was the Berserk Godslash. His fifth soul skill was named the Transformation of Heaven and Earth. Long Aotian began to spin in place like a drill, his body completely contorted. As he spiraled rapidly, he started to rise. The water pressure of Xuanwu's domain was forced away by his spiraling motion. Even though Shu Sanxia used all his strength to suppress his opponent, he could only watch as Long Aotian gained altitude. Right now, Long Aotian's aura was very dangerous. Hua Yuhao could tell that Long Aotian was finally at his strongest state. Second awakening of his body soul, unity of heaven and man, and soul skills. All three had come together. Shu Sanxia was only a soul emperor. His Xuanwu's domain wasn't strong enough to completely trap this opponent. Long Aotian used his domineering abilities to drive himself out of Xuanwu domain. He escaped the domain, and instantly shot into the sky. Of course, this was also because there weren't any restrictions on the height of the venue. If they had followed the rules of the last tournament, it wouldn't have been possible for him to launch himself into the sky. Long Aotian was like a huge ball of incandescent light as he rose into the sky. After he rocketed more than 100 meters up, he suddenly stopped. The ball of burning light turned, and then plummeted down with an unstoppable and ferocious momentum. Unity of heaven and man, transformation of heaven and earth. This was the true meaning behind this strike. As he saw this, Hua Yuhao finally gained an understanding of Long Aotian's abilities. When Long Aotian chose to use his soul skills, his impressive fighting techniques gave his attacks incredible explosive power. Long Aotian's first and third soul skills were used to strengthen himself. The purpose of the rest was to increase his destructive power to the limit. The strength of his current attack was already comparable to the attack of an 8-ringed soul Doluor. Every time a soul master advanced to the next level, the difference from his previous level was substantial. The higher one advanced, the more obvious the difference would be. Although Long Aotian was extremely gifted, he must have had sacrificed a lot in order to become a soul sage. He had also suffered a lot, and he was the only one who knew just how much. He hadn't had a childhood, but instead sacrificed everything for his cultivation to achieve what he was today. Even so, he had only just become a soul sage. Although he had only just become a soul sage, he had managed to increase his destructive power to the level of a soul Doluor without using his martial soul true body. His abilities were truly extraordinary. Many soul masters' soul skills were named after meteors. However, Long Aotian's current attack was more like a real meteor. Shu Sanxia drifted in his own domain and had a stern look on his face. He lifted his Xuanwu's shield up high, and black light surged out. The entire domain started to revolve rapidly. It was like a black whirlpool was being generated. The transformation of heaven and earth came crashing down. When it charged into the domain, it even caused white smoke to surface. The domain seemed to react to this attack like a living being. It quickly rose, revolved, attenuated, and diverted Long Aotian's attack. It was attempting to suppress the violent assault. At this instant, Shu Sanxia did something no one expected. Black light flashed, and someone else switched places with him. There was no way he could lock onto Long Aotian in that state, and thus he was naturally not the one being switched over. There was only one other person apart from Shu Sanxia and Long Aotian on the stage. I concede defeat. Referee, please protect me. Shu Sanxia appeared on one side of the stage. He was even shouting shamelessly. Xuanwu's domain quickly subsided. The transformation of heaven and earth that was being suppressed also blew apart. Boom. It was an unprecedented explosion, a mushroom cloud even formed. Heaven and earth were transformed. The protective barriers around the stage shone extremely brightly, forced into their strongest defensive mode. A white barrier opened up, and the white light that struck the barrier was dispelled by the intense undulations generated by the barrier. The impact in this direction was also the smallest. As he resisted Long Aotian's attack, Zheng Zhon's jaw was clenched so hard he almost broke his teeth. That bastard! How dare he use me? However, He had no other choice now. Shu Sanxia was most cunning in the way he had conceded defeat. At the same time he switched places with Zhang Zhon. There wasn't anything wrong in being protected by the referee after conceding defeat. The transformation of heaven and earth suppression of his domain wasn't enough to let Long Outyan lock onto him, and so gave him an opportunity to use the mysterious underworld displacement. Shu Sanxia and Bei Bei had already planned it out earlier. They could rely on Hua Yuhao's 2 victories in the individual elimination round. With those 2 victories, the Tang sect could request that they enter the team round as long as they won 1 more individual elimination round. This also meant that they only needed to defeat Long Outyan. However, they didn't have to be impatient about it. Even if they didn't win this round, they still had 5 more opportunities. Bei Bei, Wang Donga, and He Kai-tu had yet to compete. That was why Shu Sanxi's aim was very simple: probe the abilities of his opponent and deplete him at the same time. He just needed to conserve his own strength for the team round. Xuanwu's domain had been unleashed, and the Xuanwu shield had evolved and mutated. Shu Sanxia had been extremely high-spirited. Almost everyone thought that he was going to fight all out with Long Outyan. Long Outyan had also believed that, and used his strongest strike. Who knew that Shu Sanxia would be so shameless, and switch with the referee before conceding defeat? Even though Hua Yuhao had countless fighting strategies, he couldn't use shameless tactics like Shu Sanxia. The explosion lasted for 7 to 8 seconds before it ended. The spectators were horrified to see a huge depression in the center of the stage that spanned more than 50 meters in diameter. Only the area that the unbreakable Doluor had protected was in better shape. The depth of the depression couldn't be seen from beneath the stage. However, those on the main stage could tell that it was 5 meters deep. The stage was actually made of high-quality granite reinforced with steel plates. How strong did the impact have to be in order to form this huge depression? The watching Jing Hongchen's expression also changed greatly at this point. Even though Xiao Hongchen and Long Outyan both had 7 rings, he knew that Long Outyan was definitely superior to Xiao Hongchen. This also meant that the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy would have also faced trouble if they had advanced and met the Snowdemon sect. Long Outyan appeared at the core of the explosion. He was half kneeling on the ground, his hair flowing on both sides of his head. Right now, he resembled a god of war. Long Outyan's expression was very dismal as he slowly got up. His face was pale as he looked at Shu Sanxia, who was looking over curiously. He furiously shouted, "Why didn't you dare to fight me?" Shu Sanxia leisurely said, "It's not that I don't dare to, it's that I don't want to. Why must I fight all out with you? Coward." Long Outyan said coldly, "You're not fit to be my opponent." Shu Sanxia laughed. "That's funny. You've fried your brain from cultivating too much. For such a fellow like you without any strategy, I don't think you'll become anything successful in the future. A real strong individual must be fine up here." He tapped his own head meaningfully. Long Outyan's aura was a little unbalanced. His monstrous attack had depleted a lot of his energy, and even caused his previous injury to relapse. There was a prickling pain between his chest and belly. The Snowdemon sect wins. The unbreakable Doluor glared at Shu Sanxia. Before he could say more, Shu Sanxia had already jumped off from the stage. He didn't want to be cursed at. Long Outyan leapt out of the depression. He looked coldly towards the Tang sect in their waiting area and said, "Next. This video will end here.